ESPN disrespected the Cincinnati Reds, and I'm going to give you two reasons why they're wrong and why the Reds are going to be better than you think on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds. Thanks for making Locked On Reds your first listen of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and we're free and available on all podcasting platforms. I'm your host, Stephen Offenbaker, alongside Jeff Carr, and we have a passion for baseball. We have a passion for the Cincinnati Reds, and we have taken that passion and we have turned it into information for you. On today's podcast, we are going to look at the latest ESPN power rankings that predict that the Cincinnati Reds will finish dead last in 2023 while losing a franchise record 102 games. Jeff is excited about the Wil Myers signing, and he's going to tell us how Myers compares very favorably to a very popular former Red that goes by the name of Nick Castellanos. I can't wait for this conversation. And ESPN may not know how to do baseball power rankings, but what they do know how to do is showcase a sport. We're going to discuss how ESPN showcases the National Hockey League and how Major League Baseball needs to learn a thing or two or get left behind. But where we're going to start, Jeff, is with this ESPN power ranking that came out, because according to somebody that ESPN pays money to, the Cincinnati Reds are going to finish dead last. They're going to lose 102 games, and they're going to put up the worst season in franchise history in 2023.
Yes, this is according to ESPN staff writer Bradford Doolittle. Now, I don't know if there's any relation to Sean Doolittle or not, but hey, he had this to say about the Reds. And if you're on YouTube, I'll show this for you guys right here. Projected wins 60, playoff odds 0, title odds 0, aggression rank 24, improvement rank 27th. I guess you can kind of figure out this. This is an article that was titled Power Rankings After the Big Players in Free Agency Have All Been Signed. The Reds lost 100 games last year, and yet the players that they lost, led by Kyle Farmer, Mike Minor, and Donovan Solano, profile as a hair better than the group of pickups led by Kevin Newman, Nick Solak, and Luke Maile. I, as I am sure many Reds fans, am very much looking forward to the eventual ascension of shortstop Elly De La Cruz. He's not alone in terms of future Cincinnati hopes, but he's on the 40-man roster, and he's exciting. So, okay, Steve, first of all, shout out to Bradford Doolittle doing half a job here. He did not mention that Wil Myers or Curt Casali are back. He did not mention Mike Moustakas, and we'll get into all of that here in a little bit. But there are two reasons why I believe that he is dead wrong about this Reds team. Now, they're not going to win 60. They're not going to lose 102. In fact, I've got them winning 75 games, Steve. And yes, that is the over from last year, so I'm still stuck on that. I get that. But there's something very key here that everybody is just absolutely taking as gospel, and that is the absolute weird luck. And we're going to start with this. The first reason why I think the Reds win 75 games or more this year is because they had the craziest luck, bad luck, with health. And we're talking about just about everybody on the roster touched the IL last year. We're talking about at one point in May, they had 18 players on the IL, 18 players who they broke camp with, 18 players who they thought were going to anchor this team were all on the IL at the same time. That is a huge factor. I know we don't like to talk about health when we're talking about projections. We don't like to talk about, well, this guy might get hurt or this guy won't get hurt or things like that. But I firmly believe that the Reds' health will be much better this year.
Well, I mean, that's probably a safe bet. I don't know about betting for 75 wins, but it's probably I would take the bet that they're not going to have as many players injured in 2023 as they did in 22. Listen, they have taken steps to address the health. They overhauled the medical staff in the offseason. That was kind of lost in some of the coaching reshuffle, is that they also made some changes to the training staff. And I think that's going to help them in 2023. Will they be better than 60 wins? Yes, they will be better than 60 wins. I would take the over. If you gave me an over under right now, that's at 60, just an even 60 and a half, whatever you want to call it. I'm taking the over there. Now, if you're giving me the same over under this coming year as you gave me last year, if the over under 74 and a half, which I think you're going to tell us a little bit later how you've already made that your personal over under, but 74 and a half for me, I'm taking the under. I don't know that they're going to be 13 games better, Jeff, than they were last season, just because they're healthier. So you're going to have to give me more by way of convincing that they could possibly be at 75 wins, which, by the way, would put them on the outer edge of being in contention for that final playoff spot in the new playoff format.
And okay, I do realize that the 75 does put them on the outer edge of that 7th spot. I'm not saying that I think that they contend for the playoffs. I'm not arguing that Bradford Doolittle's assumption of playoff chances at 0 seems a little aggressive, but I don't think that it's probably less than 1%. Let's say greater than 0, right?
You're just mad because Doolittle robbed you of the opportunity to do your whole "you're saying there's a chance" bit. That's why you're mad.
Yeah, come on, 0%. They're going to start the season with 0% chance. Like, this is feeding the negativity that we hear. And I've heard some other negativity of like, oh, well, remember what they did last year when they sold off all those guys. It's like, they're not going to do that this year because they really can't. If they sell off people this year, they're selling off people who are part of the future. So that's not going to happen. But looking at the health of this, let's understand what I'm talking about. I'm not just saying health in general. These were key guys that the Reds missed. Tyler Stevenson was out of the lineup for 112 games. And in the lineup, they scored over 5 runs. Out of the lineup, they scored a run less, or on a per game average with Tyler Stevenson. Looking at Jonathan India. Jonathan India fought through injuries last year and did not have the kind of campaign where he could build on a rookie of the year campaign. In fact, all he has done has insert question marks into our minds as to how valuable he can be for the future of this franchise. Let me make it clear, he is still super valuable to this team, and he's going to have a bounce back year this year. But more importantly, something that we don't talk about a lot, the bullpen was supposed to be more stable, if not for the injuries. We knew, and now TJ Anto, I'm not counting him, but like Lucas Sims, we knew that Lucas Sims was a dude, right? We knew that Tony Santillan had the ability to be a dude. He showed flashes in 2021 about this, but those guys barely pitched last year. And yes, the emergence of Alexis Diaz was phenomenal, but everybody behind him was just a churn. It was just like watching a washing machine, like just throw in somebody else. And eventually those guys figured it out, but those guys weren't supposed to be trying to figure it out because we were supposed to have a stable 7th, 8th, 9th inning of relievers. And we just didn't have that due to injuries.
Okay. The Stevenson and India points are good points. The fact that they were out and injured, or in the lineup and injured in case of India, is a big difference maker. I want to believe deep down in my heart that the Tyler Stevenson stuff was just fluky. And talking to him when he was on the show several episodes back got me kind of excited because, it sounds to me like, he believes it was fluky, and he believes, he told us he wants to catch 120 games. And, the Reds may not quite give him that now that Curt Casali's on board, but Nick Kral's comments made clear that they want him to play 150 games somewhere, somehow. So that is a vastly improved offensive lineup with him hitting in the 4-hole. I agree. Jonathan India, it's a real question mark. Is Jonathan India the guy that won the Rookie of the Year, or is Jonathan India the oft injured, unwilling to sit down, disappointing year that was his sophomore season? Which one of those guys is the real guy? I believe it's probably somewhere in the middle of that. The way that India plays, he's going to get nicked and bruised from time to time, which is going to impact his offensive performance. But do I think that what we saw out of him last year is who he really is? I don't. So I'll give you that guy as well. Those two are major offensive upgrades going into 2023 than what we saw from them in 2022. The bullpen is a bit more of a question mark for me, Jeff. I don't think they've done anything really to address this problem in years now. They always, treat the bullpen as an afterthought. It always comes back to bite them, and then they scramble to do something. There's a whole lot of ifs with this bullpen right now. If Lucas Sims comes back and is who he was before, he'll be great. Yeah, that's true. If Tony Santillan puts it together and is healthy and gets the playing time and develops, he'll be great. Yeah, that's true. If Alexis Diaz continues to progress like we hope that he will. A lot of ifs there. There's a lot of hope, a lot of ifs. So the bullpen I am worried about. I'm not going to put the bullpen in the positive category right now. I think there's way too many question marks out there to be able to look at it and say it's going to help contribute to increased wins in 2023. They're definitely in my they got to show me category moving forward.
That's fair. I think where I pull from the optimism side of this is just I've seen them do it before. It's not like we're expecting guys to conjure something out of thin air. Like, I don't want to say that I'm counting on any specific rookie pitcher to come up and make this bullpen great. Like, we didn't count on Alexis Diaz to do what he was going to do last year. In fact, he was one of the last guys to make the opening day roster, and we were just kind of like, hey, good for him. Way to go. That's really all we thought. And then he transformed into this amazing relief pitcher. So I'm not even counting on that. I'm just saying I've seen those guys do it before. And yes, the health is going to be a huge concern, especially being back injuries for Lucas Sims and Tony Santillan, and then a second Tommy John for TJ Antone. I think that there is definitely a big question mark there, but I think that understanding that the stability of the bullpen was upset so much by injuries last year, and that more than anything led to, there's so many bullpen meltdowns there in that 3-22 start that I wonder, had we had those guys in there, I don't think it's going to be that bad. They're not going to start 3-22 again this year. I firmly believe that. And I tell you what, the Reds are going to win at least 75 games next year. First, because they will be healthier. And the second reason the Reds are going to win 75 games has to do with the newcomers. We'll tell you about that coming up here in just a minute. But first, we got to shout out today's sponsor. Today's sponsor of the Locked On Reds podcast is BetOnline. I was looking at this. The Reds' odds of winning the National League moved up. They now have better odds than the Nationals. Just the Nationals. I don't think it's going to move much further either. But you can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis for every single game out there at BetOnline.net. As always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. Obviously, right now, MLB's in the offseason, so there's plenty of futures to check out there. We've got the stretch run last 2 weeks of the season in the NFL, and oh my gosh, the line for the Bengals and Bills has moved 1,000 times. BetOnline is going to help you with that game and more. And of course, we got bowl season. The big bowl's actually coming up this weekend that everybody actually cares about, the playoffs and stuff like that. UGA might actually have something to say about that. And you've got the combat sports like boxing and MMA. Plus, you've got golf that's coming up too, and basketball. Forgot to say basketball. You can head to betonline.net on your desktop or your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to dive into the return of Curt Casali and tell you why the Reds have done such a great job of improving a certain position group. That's going to be on tomorrow's podcast. Thanks as always for making Locked On Reds your first listen of the day. And I just kind of want to reiterate this because I'm not BSing here. I am not making this up. I firmly believe that the Reds are going to win 75 games. And at least 75 games. So much so, and I'll tell you about this, a friend of mine and I have gone into a little bit of a wager. And if the Reds win 75 games or more, he buys me some steak at Jeff Ruby's. And if they win 74 games or less, I'm going to buy him some steak at Jeff Ruby's. That's where I'm at on this. I firmly believe that the Reds are going to do this. And like I said, it's because injuries are going to be better. The health is going to be better. And the second reason, Steve, is going to be the newcomers. And it starts with the major league players that they added this offseason. And you had kind of teased this in your intro, and you sort of poo-pooed this a little bit, but hey, that's fine. I get it. I understand. You're a non-believer right now. I will make you a believer, because Wil Myers is much better than we're giving him credit for, because when he was signed, everybody kind of did it. Oh, hey, good job, Nick Craw. Golf clap. This is good. Adding to the depth of the team. Wil Myers is Nick Castellanos-lite, my friend.
Well, you're going to have to unpack that a little bit. I do want to say, first of all, that, at least you're making this bet to buy steak now so that you have time to save, because this bet's going to cost you a lot of money. And I don't believe for 1 minute that Hannah is going to help fund this thing. So you need to start a little savings account and build up your funds, because this is a $300 misadventure for you. I think 75 wins. Come on, Jeffrey.
I'm confident that I will win this bet. Confident.
But you're right. Up. We did poo-poo this Wil Myers signing a little bit. At least I did. And not because I think Wil Myers is a bad guy, but this is what I know about Wil Myers, and you have been trying to explain it to me a little bit, and I'm kind of seeing where you're coming from with this now as you unpack this. I think everybody listening and watching will also. But for me, I looked at the Wil Myers signing. I took into account the fact that he's going to be well into his age 32 year on this planet when the season starts, and it'll be his age 32 year. This is when we typically start to see a pretty good decline in players, and then you have to weigh, will the decline be offset by the fact that he's going to play 81 games at Great American Ballpark? So
right.
I looked at this signing as they needed some outfield help. They needed somebody that can play defense. He can do that. They needed somebody that is reliable in the corners and can be in the lineup and hit the ball a little bit. He can do that. But I didn't really give it the kind of fanfare you're about to give it. So explain to us, when you say you think he's Nick Castellanos-lite, what you mean.
So looking at their careers, I'm looking at their whole body of work, because it is very easy for us as Reds fans, because we saw the best year of Nick Castellanos' career by far. He was so much better in 2021 than he was the rest of his career. And he's been a solid hitter, but he was so good in 2021. Wil Myers doesn't have that year. He doesn't have a season throughout his career that he was as good as Nick Castellanos was in 2021. I will assert that to start this discussion here. But here are a couple of stats. Steve, who has the higher career OPS plus? We love to use OPS plus, as it is a statistic that kind of wraps all of the hitting statistics up into one number, with 100 being the average. But between Castellanos and Wil Myers, who has the higher career OPS plus?
I'll take Myers here just because he's got a little bit bigger body of work, and Castellanos played those years in Detroit. I'll take Wil Myers here.
I do appreciate you rolling with this, with my theme here, but actually it is Nick Castellanos. However, for those that want to say that Nick Castellanos was just so much better than Wil Myers, career OPS plus for Nick Castellanos, 113. Career OPS plus for Wil Myers, 111. Almost a tie. That is where we will begin. Also, we look at another number, something that we loved to see from Nick Castellanos, and that is who has the higher career home runs.
I'll take Nick Castellanos here because Wil Myers played a majority of the time, or maybe all of his career. No, majority of the time. Sorry, he started out in Tampa Bay. Majority of the time in San Diego, which is not known to be a hitter-friendly ballpark. So I will go with Nick Castellanos leading in home runs.
And a lot of that, I don't think they moved the fences up until just a couple of years ago. So I think he still played like 4 or 5 years with the fences pushed back. But you are right. However, as most would be assuming, that Nick Castellanos smashed way more home runs than Wil Myers. Nick Castellanos, 181 career home runs. Wil Myers, 153. Not really that different. Now, I will say this too. Like, if you look at numbers, if you read different folks' opinions about this, Nick Castellanos is very bad defensively. Wil Myers is not. Wil Myers is a better defensive player than Nick Castellanos is. The one thing that Nick Castellanos definitely has in spades over Wil Myers is health. He's been much healthier throughout his career than Wil Myers has. But when you look at their body of work through their entire career, both players having played 10 years in the major leagues, their careers aren't that far apart. And when I say that Wil Myers is Nick Castellanos-lite, I'm not saying that sarcastically. I'm saying that seriously. I think the Reds may have actually answered a question mark in their outfield. Not given a half of an answer, but given a full answer. I think we might actually have a corner outfielder who can play just about every day.
I'll give you that Wil Myers is a better signing than we made it out to be. I don't know that I'm ready to put it up there with that Nick Castellanos signing, even if we're just putting it just below the Nick Castellanos signing. But I hope that Wil Myers goes out and proves me wrong, Jeff. But Wil Myers is not the only person that's been added to the roster. Curt Casali was added to the roster. Luke Miley, whatever, has been added to the roster. It's going to make things very, very interesting for the upcoming season. Coming up, we're going to talk about something that ESPN has done right. We talked about what ESPN has done wrong, and we spent 2 segments telling you why the Reds are going to be better than ESPN thinks they're going to be. But ESPN has done a great job of showcasing other sports, and hockey is doing something that baseball needs to pay attention to, or they're going to be left behind. And we're going to tell you what and why coming up next. During this holiday season, you're probably going to be out hanging with some friends. You're going to put back a few drinks. A few drinks becomes a few too many. And as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think about calling for a ride, but then you think to yourself, nah, I live nearby. I can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds that you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance can go up. You could lose your license. You might lose your job. You could total your car. You could kill someone. Everybody knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why right now, police officers everywhere are out there looking for impaired drivers on our roads. They're looking to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. You can follow our podcast on all platforms, including right here on YouTube. It's your first time here watching us. Thank you so much. Click subscribe, click the notification bell. You'll get notified every time we post something and when we go live. We've been doing Aloha Friday live shows, and they've been so much fun. Shout out to all of you guys. We put you in the driver's seat. We take your questions and comments. Those shows have ended up being double episodes every week. Tons of viewers hanging out. We have a blast. I love it. I know Jeff loves it. Make sure you are following those. You can also follow us between shows on Twitter. You can follow me at S. Offenbaker. That's with 2 F's. You can follow Jeff at Jeff Carr. That's Jeff with 3 F's, because as I tell you folks all the time, spelling is hard for him. You can also follow the show at Locked On Reds. There's no F's in that. So make sure you are subscribed on your favorite platform so you don't miss out on any of the conversation. All right, Jeff, we were talking about something off air, and it's turned into a segment for us to discuss here today because you are becoming quite the hockey fan, and you are utilizing the ESPN Plus package in order to facilitate your developing hockey addiction. I also have that service and catch the occasional hockey game, but I have another friend that's just all in on hockey, and his favorite package of any streamer is ESPN Plus because of the hockey. And it led to a conversation between you and I about the impacts that could have on developing the NHL and their brand and what that could mean for Major League Baseball.
100%, Steve. I mean, for the longest time now, we have understood that the NFL and the NBA are the top two professional sports in America, and Major League Baseball is third. And there's probably a precipitous gap between Major League Baseball and the NBA. Now, like what the NHL has done with ESPN Plus, that really could vault them ahead of Major League Baseball. And hear me out on this, because last night, sitting there just on the ESPN Plus app, flipping between Rangers and Capitals, watching Alex Ovechkin play. And then you could flip it over to the Avalanche and watch the defending champions play. And then you could flip it over to Oilers and Flames and watch the battle for Alberta. Literally every single thing. And you had the ability to pick whichever broadcast you wanted. So if you've become attached to a certain team, if you are a fan of a certain team, you can watch their broadcast no matter where they're at, if they're home or away. And there's just this ability to consume the game that is so freely available. I'm not saying freely. Obviously, you have to pay for the subscription for ESPN Plus, but you don't have to buy an extra package to get all of the NHL games. They're just there. And I absolutely love that. And I think that more than anything, more than, all these different youth outreach movements and all the things that Major League Baseball is doing, just making their product more available and easier to consume is literally all they need to do to get a footing back. And who knows, maybe they could close that gap between them and the NBA. But as of right now, they got to worry about the NHL coming up on them.
Well, and Rob Manfred, that's Manfred Hates Baseball is the hashtag for there. I really enjoy these little nicknames I get to come up with for people. So, hashtag Manfred Hates Baseball has been talking about this for years. The blackout policy. He's been heckled. Just most recently at the World Series, a fan was yelling at him and yelled at him, got his attention because Manfred looks at the guy while he says, if you want the youth in the blackouts, you dumb bad word. So, and Manfred, heard that. And he's been hearing that. He's been talking about this for years. He says that it will be a monumental undertaking in order to reorganize the broadcast rights to end the blackouts. Well, then do it. He's had multiple years to do it. And Major League Baseball in that time frame has gone out and signed new contracts with new streamers to give exclusivity to other areas, the daytime Peacock game, baseball on Apple TV Plus, baseball on YouTube. They're farming out broadcast deals to everybody, and they're not fixing anything. It's time for them to act, because you're absolutely right. The NHL is going to pass up Major League Baseball if they don't act soon. Just as an example, Jeff, here in Hawaii, while there's many wonderful things about being here, especially in the winter, I hope you all saw my Christmas card on Twitter. That was just for you guys.
It is supposed to be 60 here in Ohio this weekend. So
that was the low last night. Anyway, here in Hawaii, Jeff, the blackouts are the entire West Coast from Seattle to San Diego, and everyone in between is blacked out. Ridiculous. So anytime the Reds are on a West Coast swing, I have to really get creative in order to watch the broadcast, because they're all blacked out, and it's just ridiculous. I'm not going to take out the ultra mega sports pack on the cable system just to watch the one West Coast swing or whatever it ends up being. I'm not gonna do that. The attendance impact, I'm not driving to San Diego. Can't do it. It's a long swim. So that's ridiculous. It's an archaic, antiquated system that Major League Baseball just can't seem to find a way to move on from. And I think that the public pressure is mounting now in such a way that maybe they will act. But they're slow. They're slow to do things. And I think your point is well taken, that if they wait much longer, it might be too late.
And I feel like there's an ability to do this, because it seems like every team has some sort of controlling interest in the regional sports network that covers them. Like, we know very well that the Reds have a pretty big controlling interest in Bally Sports. It's the same with the Guardians in Bally Sports Cleveland. You've got the Yankees, who literally own Yes Network and different things like that. So I feel like it should be easier for Major League Baseball to kind of just pull this all together, because just the ease that it was to literally flip around the league for the NHL and watch whoever I wanted to watch, like, to do that and say, you pay all that money for the extra sports package, and you get NBC Sports in San Francisco, and you get whatever is it Root in Seattle, whatever they have there.
So.
You still got like 12 channels you got to flip between. Like ESPN Plus, it's literally like, hey, it's on the screen. Oh, you want to flip it? You hit the down button, and then there's the games. And you just click on the games. Like, you don't have to worry about all the different flipping and all this other stuff. It's just so much easier to consume the product. And that's really what baseball needs. They need to be easier to consume, because right now it's just, and then you have the Peacock game on Sundays, and then you have the Apple TV Plus game on Fridays, and you've got, well, they're on ESPN on Wednesday, and then they're on Fox Sports 1 on Saturday or something like that. It's just too hard to consume the game in an era where it's really easy to consume everything else.
And the blackouts, Jeff, they don't make sense anymore. As an example, you hear from Reds fans that the Bally Sports game is blacked out in Charlotte. I mean, what sense does that make?
I heard
to black
that
it out in
was
Charlotte.
crazy.
It's crazy. So, I encourage, we know that Nick Craw's listening. Maybe he can talk to his friends. We need the blackouts lifted, or at least MLB TV changed in a manner that makes sense. I would even pay a little bit extra. I mean, not a whole lot extra, but I would pay a little bit extra for a blackout free version of MLB TV, so that I could just watch what I want, when I want, how I want. That would be great. I would probably pony up for that.
On one app. Yeah.
It would be great. And it could be done. It wouldn't require a lot of new technology. It just requires a bunch of rich old guys to waver a little bit in their steadfastness of dedication to things from the 1940s.
Yeah, exactly. And I think about how easy it is to consume every other sport, and we even talk about that, and it was something that it came up last year during the home opener, whenever whenever the SOB, son of Bob, said, where else are you gonna go? And what he really missed on that was, well, there's so many easy forms of entertainment now, between Netflix and Hulu and Peacock and all the different apps and all the different shows that you can watch. And you're not just competing with the other teams in town. You're not just competing with the other teams in the league. You're competing with so much. And if Major League Baseball does not understand that here soon and reworks the regionality, there is no other sport in America that is more regional than baseball. Like, think about the NFL. You always hear about fans everywhere, all over the place for Bengals fans, all over the place for Cowboys fans, all over the place for Steelers and stupid Steelers and all this other stuff. Why? Because it's so easy to watch all over the country. It's very, very hard, like you said, to watch Reds games all over the country, and they've got to stop that.
They do. And that is probably where we will wrap it up for today. I hope that someone forwards this to Manfred, gets him to take a listen. That's going to do it for us today on this edition of the Locked On Reds podcast. Coming up tomorrow, Jeff and I are going to tell you how the Reds have very quietly upgraded the position of catcher for the 2023 baseball season. We're going to take an in-depth look at what we think those upgrades are coming up tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On Reds your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. They've got the biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, which is never quite as hot a take as mine are, but they are pretty good. The Locked On Sports Today podcast, just like Locked On Reds, is free and available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Jeff, we're screaming through this offseason. The Reds are not winning just 60 games. They might not be winning 75 either, but we're all over it. What can the fans expect from us the rest of the way?
They can expect me to continue to explain why I am correct, and they will win at least 75 games. They can count on us to continue to check out what's going on with this team, all the different rumors, all the different moves. We will have you covered because we got our finger on the pulse of all things Cincinnati Reds, because we are Locked On Reds every single day.